Good morning from the beautiful city of Barcelona. This is hands down one of my favorite cities in the world, and what a location to get the first glimpse, the first ride of this beauty. This is the Royal Enfield Guerrilla 450, the Neo Retro take on a Roadster. And the biggest giveaway, of course, you have 17-inch wheels instead of the 21-inch front and the 18-inch rear on the Himalayan. A lot of the components are shared with the Himalayan, mainly the Sherpa 450 engine. It's in the exact same state of tune. It makes the same 40 PS, 40 Newton meters of torque. Just the gear ratios in terms of the final drive is a little bit different. And this has a 1545 final drive instead of a 1547. I know it's a little bit taller, but you have to take into account, of course, the wheels. In terms of the gearing, is not that much different is what we are told. And this should feel a little more sprightly because this is also about 11 kgs lighter than the Himalayan. A lot of that weight saving has also come down from the reduction in tank. This is an 11 litre tank or 17 litre on the Himalayan. As you would expect, the ergonomics are again, they're upright as they should be on a Roadster, but the handlebar is a little bit narrower and it's a little bit lower down. Also in terms of the foot pegs, they are more rear set and higher up. The seat height in this trim is 780 millimeters. The forks again are Showa. You have 140 mm of travel at the front, 150 at the back, but these are not upside down forks, these are traditional forks, so I'm interested to see how they perform. Forks are completely unadjustable. The rear is adjustable for preload. You have Seat tyres. These are again dual purpose tyres, but these are brand new, specifically made by Seat for Royal Enfield. Another small change is the front brake disc. That's a slightly smaller 310 mm disc instead of a 320 mm on the Himalayan, but you still get sintered pads and the same caliper that you have seen on the Himalayan. Sintered pads both at the front as well as the back. The engine, even though it's exactly the same as on the 450, they have made a few changes in terms of the fueling, in terms of the mapping, to make this a little more responsive as it should be in this urban environment. There are two modes. There's of course the eco mode, where the power, everything is supposed to come out very, very linear, and then the performance mode, the total response seems to be a little more sprightly. Definitely more sensitive to the touch. It responds right away, which makes the experience a little more engaging. In terms of tractability, I would say this is similar to the Himalayan. You need to keep the revs high, above 3000 RPM, to get the motorcycle going. If not, it starts juddering, as you can see. It's not too bad, but yeah, this is an engine which loves revs. I was a little bit worried about the taller gearing, if that was going to make the tractability worse. But yeah, with the smaller wheels and of course the fact that this is a much lighter motorcycle, it's not that bad. This is the one aspect where I hoped the Guerrilla 450 could have been better, was the slipper clutch was a little bit lighter and easier to operate in the city, because right now it's still on the harder side, just like we had experience on the Himalayan. And also both the levers, the brake as well as this levers, are not adjustable, which is a bummer, which would have added a little more value. The wheelbase on this is still pretty long at 1440 millimeters, but they've gone for a pretty aggressive rake and trail to give you the agility which you seek. And honestly, on the Himalayan, in terms of the geometry, in terms of suspension setup, that was one thing which really impressed me, and I'm hoping that this one continues in the same vein. At least so far in this ride, we have gone over quite a few speed breakers, And yeah, it seems to be absorbing all the bumps really well. Yeah, all of these things, yeah, you don't even feel them, which is great news. That's the one thing which has left me wanting with recent Royal Enfield motorcycles. And the Guerrilla 450 doesn't seem to have that problem. It seems to have, so far at least, really good suspension. We will of course be hitting the mountains very soon, where we'll pick up the pace in the corners to see how the front end feels, how the conventional folks, if they are a compromise. But so far, no problemo. Yeah, I'm not very fond of this stock seat, which has the seat height is 780 millimeters. It definitely helps make sure you're flat-footed. Most of you will be flat-footed, but I think for a taller rider, the ergonomics then become a little too cramped. There is, I don't think space is a problem. There is space. It's just the way you're sat, and you're kind of sat on the seat in the same position, the way it is shaped, which makes it not the most comfortable. So I'm definitely looking forward to trying the 800 millimeter seat to see if that helps, because already we have not really traveled that far, and my butt seems to be already going numb. We are on the highway, and the first thing you notice, of course, is the lack of any wind protection. So that is going to be one thing that you have to keep in mind. You're looking at this motorcycle from a touring perspective. Yeah, you don't have much wind protection. The bike also, because the longer wheelbase, feels quite stable. And another big thing that you'll appreciate here at higher speeds is the fact that the tire profile is wider on this motorcycle. So you have 120 by 70 front, you have 160 by 60 rear tire, so it's much wider. So that will of course aid in terms of the stability when you are riding this motorcycle at higher speeds. With the change in the final drive and the gear ratios being slightly taller, you will have to rev the motorcycle a little bit more to get into a band where it doesn't feel as buzzy. The vibes, the character of the engine stays the same in the 90 to 110 power band, rev band. You will have vibes, so you will have to rev the motorcycle a little bit more for the engine to settle and for the ride to be a little bit comfortable. And also in terms of the ground clearance, you have 170 mm of ground clearance. So even to scale out all speed breakers, that will not be an issue on this motorcycle. So we are getting off the freeway, hopefully getting on to the curvy road that these guys have been talking about. So let's see what this baby can do when you let her rip. Look at the scenery, man, and look at these roads. Woo. Gotta give credit where it's due. This bike is doing really well. Inspires a lot of confidence in the corners. Really good stability and very neutral in the way it handles. Even when you pick up the pace, the tires are holding up really well. The brakes are also doing really good. Only couple of times where the tires kinda let go was on the edge when I was being a little bit greedy on the throttle. Other than that, for this kind of pace, this is phenomenal. So as you can see, we are back at the hotel after a fantastic day of riding on the Guerrilla 450, and I did actually get a chance to try the other bench seat, which did not have the scoop. It was flat. It did definitely help me move around the motorcycle that much better. The rider's triangle was a little bit better for someone who is 5'11" and taller.
The only problem was the bench seat was very, very firm, so it did not really help on the comfort front. So I think comfort of the seat is definitely one thing where the Guerrilla 450 can be better. Really curious, and I would hope that Royal Enfield offers maybe just normal road tires for this motorcycle as a part of maybe the GMA kit, because I feel handling is something which has been a standout feature on the Guerrilla 450, and I think just normal road tires would help you push that envelope a little bit more and have even more fun in corners. The most subjective thing is the way it looks. I personally think the color scheme that Royal Enfield had come with for the Scram 411 would have been a better fit for this motorcycle, because it already looks the part. It has the name Guerrilla 450, it has the character. I think that color scheme would have looked better on the Guerrilla 450. With the color scheme that they have right now, especially this yellow one, I think it's a little on the side of trying too hard. They themselves have been quite vocal by saying that they wanted to have this really extreme polarizing effect. So I'm not sure how many takers there would be for the color schemes that they have, but I think that's an easy fix, because they can of course always later on offer more color schemes which are better suited and more in line with the Scram 411. Lastly, where exactly does this slot in? This of course depends a lot on how Royal Enfield prices it. If they price it close to the Triumph Speed 400, I think that would really help the Guerrilla 450 do well, because the only reason why the Speed 400 is not doing as well as it should, despite being a phenomenal bike, is because it's really small, it's really compact, and we Indians like big motorcycles. And I think this one fits the bill that much more, relatively speaking. It has a bigger bike feel compared to the Speed 400. This can be a really good alternative to two motorcycles from the Royal Enfield stable itself, which is, first is Himalayan. People who love the Himalayan 450 but find it too big, too bulky, too intimidating, this is a really good alternative. And secondly, also the Hunter. So if people want something which is a little more powerful than the Hunter. The biggest problem with the Hunter was it looked really fast, but did not have the engine to back that up. Now you have a motorcycle which actually has an engine, which is a racier, revier engine, which is more suited for people looking for a proper roadster from the Royal Enfield stable.